So here we are, live talk with Becky Chernek. And boy, let me tell you, tonight I have a terrific guest speaker, featured guest speaker, Mr. Everold Reid. And he is with the International Reid Method. And I will let him talk more about what that is all about. But all you need to understand, this man knows what he's doing when it comes to sales and how to push it to the next level. So we will definitely get there. But for those that are new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek, and I have been providing the very best in finance and insurance training. But more than that, I mean, really, when I get into a store, I start from the time that customer lands on that dealership website, working with BDC, working with your sales folks in presentation, negotiation, and also working at the desk, because it's critical. It is a critical component because we know the desk is the hub of all. That's where everything takes place. So it aligns with our sales department as well as what goes on in that F&I department. So I help to work with the desk to finalize those transactions in the F&I office to impact performance. And okay, so listen up. We are going live here on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, as well as X. So if you like what we're talking about, I hope that you do. Please hit the subscribe button, please, and share. It really helps us in getting the word out. So thank you. Okay, Everold, you're here. Let's talk for our dealers and viewers. What are you doing?
Becky, awesome to see you again. And
it's so great to see you too. I met Everold at Ted Ing's Fixed Ops Roundtable before COVID in New Jersey, of all places.
Yeah, that was a nice meeting. I told Ted that day I literally drove all night from Toronto to get to New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
to start
I didn't know that.
I know. I'm like, who does that? I'm like, I guess here we are. But yeah, that was great seeing you there. And I know we ran into each other a couple of the times. And yeah, great to be on your show.
And it's good to have you here. So, first, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about your background, your sales background, you say the International Reid Method. What is that?
The Reid Method International. So the Reid Method International is, it's just the name of my company. But the Reid Method is basically my last name being Reid. So I just thought, okay, it's me displaying the ways that I think that has evolved with me, that what I think success it means in the automotive space and in life in general. So I coach and teach, and I lecture at some colleges here in Toronto. And I've created a philosophy or a methodology by which sales people and management can enjoy greater levels of success. And that comes from my 35 years in sales and marketing. So not just automotive sales, but 8 years in marketing and advertising. And that actually was all across US and Canada. So it was an opportunity. I learned, so having been in the automotive space for 35 years, 8 of those years, I had left and gone into advertising and marketing, and learned a lot traveling across North America and the Caribbean, because I was able to identify what it took to sell, not just in one market or one country, but in multiple markets, different types of people everywhere, and different products. Right.
There's a lot to be said about that. I know when I went from the States to Canada, it's just not the same. It's just different ways of looking at stuff. I remember when we were talking about, here in the States, we were always pulling credit sooner rather than later. It was like probably too soon. Just like pulling the
walk in the door, pull your credit.
And you get to Canada, it's like, whoa, wait a second here. We don't do it like that. There's no way we're going to go ahead and pull credit that quick, Becky. Calm those jets down. And it's not until really, in some cases, until the deal is already consummated and the deal is sent to the lender, and the lender is telling the dealer, oh, by the way, this doesn't work. And I'm like, why would you get it? Why would you let it get that far? So,
Yeah, it's a bit more conservative way of thinking and the process here. It's the same thing in the banking industry here. It's more regulated, it's more conservative, and privacy is a big deal here. So, a client could come into your showroom knowing full well that they may not qualify for that lease or loan. Waste 2-3 hours of your time and throw it up against the wall, only to find out later that they've been bankrupt or in
I
proposal
know.
or something. So it's a little different. Sometimes we try to qualify them ahead of time, which to kind of find that out. But that's different in different markets as well, Becky. And like, for example,
Yes.
where my Lexus store is in Oakville, Ontario, we have an approval rate of literally 99-98%. We don't get a lot of subprime, and we actually don't even offer subprime in my store because it's not what's expected in that market. But other markets, for sure, it'd be good if we could run the credit ahead of time.
Well, it's interesting because, so I also did facilitation for SimTech Dealer Services. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. And SimTech, I think they were actually at our store yesterday.
Ontario, Canada for a while. And I did their 5-day and 3-day advanced class, but you didn't know that. Anyway,
I didn't know that.
So I'm like, guys, there's subprime everywhere. And they thought, Becky, calm down. Subprime customers. Now, I know this isn't about subprime customers, but I got to tell you, things are changing in your neck of the woods too. I'm actually working with a team in, Toronto, Canada.
Right where I am, pretty much.
Well, do you know Rosa Hoffman by chance?
No, I'd probably know the group but I don't know that name per se.
She was actually with one of the largest groups there in Canada. But for the past 9 years, they have actually started working on AI, on this AI machine learning to determine customers as it pertains to subprime and what lenders they may qualify for. So she's coming here to the States. I'm helping her, working with those guys. But I got to tell you, it's just an interesting perspective between what goes on in Canada versus what goes on here in the United States. But one thing for sure, leasing. So let me just see here and see if we have any kind of comments. What's going on here? There's Randy. Happy Thursday, Randy. I don't know if you're still on, but thank you for saying hi, Randy. I appreciate it. So we have here in the States, we have more visibility, more when it comes to leasing. And, they're more, customers are more apt to do leasing with EV and perhaps maybe with hybrid. I'm a hybrid kind of person, as I told you. And with the Lincoln Nautilus, which I think is like super cool, spaceship kind of. It's a very nice vehicle.
That's a nice guy.
And I did the lease. I did the lease. And so here, let's talk about leasing from a perspective as how do you guys see it in Canada? And I will tell you some of how they see it here in the States.
Well, in Canada, for the most part, especially when it's brands that are pretty much every premium brand across the country would prefer leasing. And that is what we actually focus more on. Like, for example, in my store, we are close to about a 67% lease penetration rate. And we want to be more in the 70s in terms of renewal rates. So there are two categories. You focus on penetration, obviously, and then you also focus on renewal. penetration to grow your portfolio, renewal obviously to maintain and grow your portfolio. But we value leasing. We put a lot of focus on leasing. A salesperson, an experienced salesperson with a portfolio could survive just on lease renewals and penetration. A dealership in Canada, most premium brands could survive and do a lot just based on the leasing philosophy, the way it's set up. And I've done this whole exercise in spreadsheets as to how leasing affects profitability, because I know that's a big, word. Exactly. So you can take the approach where, okay, it's a finance and you're going to get an immediate or a bigger subprime, you're going to get the reserve, you're going to get the immediate profit. But I think that's a relatively short-sighted view of the automotive space, because you may be selling that client a vehicle only once. If it's a subprime or if it's if it's a finance, it's going to be a longer term to keep payments respectable because of affordability. So they're in the vehicle for a longer term if you're financing, and especially if it's subprime, they're definitely going to be in it for a longer time. And you may have made, a nice amount of money up front, but where we find extreme value and sustainable profitability and growth is in the ability to take for example, you lease a new client one vehicle today. They may come in with a trade-in, or they may not. But let's say you lease them the first car and they're in a 4-year lease or a 3-year lease. By year 2 to 3, we're actively pursuing them renewing that lease early and upgrading them into a new vehicle. So one lease vehicle turns into 3 deals immediately within 2 to 3 years. Okay. And it's not just the turning of the vehicles that we're concerned about. We are selling these vehicles with finance products such as extended warranties or service plans. We're selling them with wear pass coverage or gap coverage.
Can I ask you a question? How are you selling a vehicle service contract with the lease? And by the way, I don't know if Randy's still on or not, but I got to say,
he worked in Canada
at Tricor Automotive Group. Do you know where that is?
Well, I know the group. I definitely know of the group, and it's good to see Randy and that he worked here in this neck of the woods. It's a little. You wouldn't want to be here. No, it's cold right now.
So I didn't want to take you off your.
That's okay. How do we sell service plans?
So how is it? Because let me just say this, and for your agents here maybe listening in, they cringe. I'm telling you. Even dealers cringe. They're like, leasing, Becky, calm down on the leasing. We're not going to make as much money on the profit of that deal. And chances are, we make profit off of reinsurance, off of those vehicle service contracts. And not so much that we get the customers coming back to the dealership, right? Yeah. And the chances of selling them another car. And so what do you say to them?
I say to them, within the time that you financed one car, okay, I would have leased that client 2 to 3 vehicles in that same 3 to 4 to 5 year period. And I would have, so the one deal again turns into 3 within 2 to 3 years because we are upgrading them early. So 3 years into a 4-year lease, 2 years into a 3-year lease, we are looking at opportunities where rates have changed. There could be potential equity in the vehicle, depending on the condition of the vehicle, etc. We're bringing that vehicle in. Now that vehicle becomes a CPO vehicle, which is going through the shop. Our average reconditioning is well over $3,000. So you get parts and service business. Then somebody's going to buy that pre-owned vehicle, and we're going to finance that vehicle likely. You're going to get business office. So it's multiple vehicles and a turn, and it's a cycle. And what we have been able to develop and what I teach is how to develop a leasing culture. It's a culture where not only it's profitable for the dealership, it's profitable for the salesperson because they're able to build a better portfolio of clients that they become more familiar with. And it's also better for the clients because they now come to like this culture of being able to renew and get the latest technology every 2, 3, 4 years, rather than being stuck in a long-term loan, okay, at higher interest rates. The car's getting older. They're paying more maintenance now because it's out of warranty, et cetera, et cetera. I have done this exercise and showed how dealerships will make millions of dollars long-term over a 3 to 4 year period versus the one-shot deal to make a big gross now up front.
So I hear you. So what you're saying is that dealers are playing the short game.
It's a very short game.
When you're saying to me, I'm going to take my hit, I'm going to turn this, and you know what? I've seen it firsthand in dealerships where they have actually taken a lease. I know you're going to cringe.
And flipped it to a finance.
And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So growing up in the business, I was never allowed to do that. I wasn't allowed to do that. If the deal was a lease, it stayed a lease. If I went ahead back in the day and converted that back over to a long-term finance deal, I'd been shot. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have been I couldn't have.
But when you think about it, Becky, it almost doesn't make sense.
But that isn't what it is today. So it's like, Becky, I'm going to do extended terms on this deal because we're making more.
Yeah,
but
that's not good for the client.
Looking at the short game and not the long game, and you are talking and you're training long game here, guys. Look at what more you're able to achieve.
So when I left the business for 8 years and I returned, okay, a friend of mine owned a Toyota and Lexus. Huh?
Hello. Yeah.
A friend of mine owned a Toyota and Lexus dealership. So I came back and I'm like, I'm an older guy now. I am not waited for ups to walk through the door. I'm not doing that. So I learned our lease portfolio system. I learned our software and our management system. And then I learned it so well that I started teaching it to other people. And through that, I was able to create systems and processes that our dealerships now use. And I now teach across Canada to many other dealerships. I've worked with Lexus Financial, Toyota Financial, many other companies, Nissan, Mazda, etc., teaching them how to do this. We do it more here in Canada, but there's the system that I've created is about sustainable growth, sustainable profitability. The salesperson is growing a portfolio, so they're building a career where they're not having to make a huge one-shot kill every time. But so take, for example, I have several clients in my portfolio, and I'm talking a lot, where in the last 12 years since I've been back at the with my Lexus dealer, they've had 10 to 12 vehicles from me, the same client. Okay, because every year or two, they're either renewing 1 or 2 vehicles, and they're happy to do it. But if you have a mentality where, and I'm not saying financing is terrible. I'm not saying that. If that's your preferred business model, that's fine. But I'm telling you, if you want to have a more sustainable career, salespeople that build actual careers than have jobs where they're managing a portfolio. So you're going to learn portfolio management. You're going to have a lot of the same clients. You're going to be able to build. And the best thing, Becky, you're the same cars that you just leased out brand spanking new, with a service plan, with a paint protection film, with whatever F&I products, they're coming back and they become the best used cars, and you're making money on those cars again.
So we have a couple comments here. First, Randy, your customers who are leasing are actually driving your used car inventory.
100%. 100%.
You're developing that.
And I see another question there that I assume 3,000 in recon condition.
Oh, you got Chris over here. Yeah, I assume the $3,000 recon is Canadian.
It is Canadian, but it's sometimes it could even be 4. It all depends on what you're doing. If you're doing tires and brakes and you're bringing the service up to date, there's 3,000 Canadian, 3,500 right off the bat, right? You're making the car perfect. So the shop and the parts department is going to have $3,000 to $4,000, sometimes even $5,000, before the car even hits the lot. So there's typically a $10,000 spread between what the car is coming back in for and what you're selling it for, right? And on top of that, so you have 5,000 recon, you make 3,000 to 5,000 profit.
That going on in service and
yeah. So every department, F&I is getting the hit, service, parts, all the departments, and then you're putting that client out in a finance. Again, the model, I've done this, I've extrapolated this on a spreadsheet as to what the effect of leasing one car and renewing that lease every 2 to 3 years turns out to be as potential profitability for the dealership. And if you're doing 100 of those, just take 100 of those, you literally end up at close to $1 million.
Well, I think we've gotten off the beaten path, and since COVID, things completely changed when it comes to leasing in many source cross. The residuals went bad, the terms went bad, and it just seemed, more advantageous to finance customers. So now it's like, okay, but we don't have a skill set here. Our skill set for leasing is not like it used to be. I don't know if we do a really good job in sales or on the desk when it even comes to presenting the pencil.
You're absolutely right. And Becky, you're asking all the right questions. So you're bang on here. And Randy and Chris, you guys are great.
These guys are great. Yeah. We got some good guys here.
Yeah, our customers, especially at the premium brand level, Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, all of those, most of the pre-owned inventory. As a matter of fact, I can tell you definitively, 100% factually, at our Lexus dealer and Toyota dealer, we have not purchased any vehicles from an auction.
Good for you. That's great. I mean, this is something, again, it's
all from it's all from
buying auction. If you can help it, bring it in through your consumers, it's through service. And so we don't.
Many of the vehicles that I resell as a pre-owned, Becky, I can literally say to the clients, that pre-owned client, that prospect, I sold this vehicle when it was new. I knew the client. This is the type of people they were. This is how they looked after the vehicle. Okay, we know the history of this vehicle. You're getting more profit just by having that story. Yeah,
and again, it is a matter of having better understanding. Now, I don't want to be like a advertisement, but I will.
Because you can.
I'm going to be releasing my book, F&I Fundamentals, soon. It probably will be definite. I say February is coming out. I thought it was going to come out in January, but it's called F&I Fundamentals, and it's everything for a dealer from A to Z, and really having a good understanding. And part of what I had done, even with the NCM Institute, was we did a class on how to talk lease, how to do a lease.
Yeah.
When I was doing leases back in the day, I'm not a senior. Listening.
Neither am I.
Back in the day. I'm a veteran, pioneer, whatever you want to call me, but don't call me a senior.
Don't call me a senior. I like that.
That's all I ask. So, we did it by hand. We did leases by hand. It was the way we did stuff. It was like a no-brainer. I'm going to take out my worksheet. I did stuff by hand. I understood it. That's what's wrong. We don't know the mechanics, the math of leasing. And I know it doesn't make for the most exciting class, but I'm going to tell you right now, and here's what happened. So everybody was bumming out that I was going over the mechanics of leasing. Like, Becky, let's get into something more interesting than that. And so, but it turned out I got a phone call from one of the F&I managers that attended the class and thanked me inside and out and said, thank you so much. Because you did that, we had an incident at the dealership. Lights went off. I don't know what happened, but no electricity. And he had to figure out how to do a lease by hand. He goes, I got in your book and I figured it out. But this is the stuff that we have to do a better job with. We have to do a better job here in the States when it comes to F&I fundamentals. Get back to the basics.
Absolutely. So Becky, I'm with you there. So my first book that I released is The Reid Method, A Blueprint for Achieving Sales Mastery. That's the name of the book. In that book, I touched on a lot of the fundamental principles of success in our business, in automotive, and not just in automotive, but in life in general, but success as a person in business and a career. Then I pivoted to my leasing course, which is called the Lease Performance Blueprint. So it's about, here's the blueprint for lease performance. So it's LPB, the Lease Performance Blueprint. So I've literally written that book already, and I've created the courses that I customize for different brands, because different brands have slightly different programs and so on. But you're absolutely right. I actually had to create the course in 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced, because even a lot of senior sales reps and managers are not as advanced. So if you're not able to articulate the benefits of leasing with, amongst each other, how are you going to be able to do it to a client? And in large part, dealerships from top to bottom, up the management hierarchy, right down to the most junior salesperson, they're not advocating leasing, or they're not offering it because it's either too complicated, or they're not really up to speed on how to articulate the benefits and the features of how it actually works, how it can actually improve. So instead of learning that skill or improving your skill to improve your longevity, your profitability, your customer, your renewal and retention, and your service and parts business, we go for the one-shot deal and say, okay, yeah, we made 10,000, gross, or we made a big hit, but long-term, it's actually not the right formula.
So we have a comment here. Let's take a look. Michael Baker, out of curiosity, how far back a book are you with most of your lease returns after reconditioning? There may be a lot of opportunity for subprime customers after the vehicle is for sale.
Absolutely, right? Because that opens up, when that pre-owned vehicle comes back on the lot and you've reconditioned and it looks like new again, right? That opens up to all markets, be it subprime, be it a regular finance client, be it a cash client. And then you're selling warranty, and you're selling other products, gap insurances, and whatever else you offer. So we do the same at our store. But yeah, that one vehicle that, which Michael
Again,
is bringing.
probably more for us than for you, right? Because, and it depends on what provinces you're in Canada, where you're going to get more subprime credit. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah. So it wouldn't, some parts of Toronto, because Toronto's got 8+ million people. So it's a huge city with, so different areas you'd have more subprime. And subprime is a thing here too, right? But it's a temporary gap for a lot of people. They get that car, they rebuild their credit, they have transportation to get their job going into, reaffirm themselves into a higher vehicle at a later point. So it is part of the business here too, but it's not the fundamental part of new car business.
Right.
Do you offer any leasing? Oh yeah. Yeah, we do offer leasing. And so to answer Chris's question, and these guys are very sharp with the questions.
I know, they're really good. They don't mess around.
Absolutely. Our manufacturer, both Toyota and Lexus and many other brands such as those, do offer leasing for CPO vehicles. So once it's certified pre-owned, they do provide you the residual percentages, or the fixed residual amounts that you are, so they provide you with the residual amounts and the advance amount, right? Okay. So if you're selling the car for more than the advance amount, then basically that difference is a down payment. but you can lease a CPO vehicle. Yes.
Great. Okay. Good. Some more questions here. Mike Baker, what's the
What percent?
percentage of your retail sales are subprime? No. He doesn't do. Okay.
One.
Michael.
Okay. It's in my marketplace market area, Michael. It is literally 1%. It's Oakville, Ontario. Oakville has one of the highest income per capita in the entire North America, so it's among one of the top places. But in general, across Toronto, the greater Toronto area, which, as I mentioned, is about 8 million people, it would probably be closer to 15%.
Yeah. Well, when I speak with some of the folks in Canada, so Kim McPherson, do you know Kim by chance?
Yes, I do. I know the name. Like, honestly, I've met so many people. I don't know where they all are right now.
Kim used to have her own business. She's back working with a dealer right now. But so my understanding is that subprime is about, believe it or not, around 40%. Now, for Canada,
Canada, maybe
50% more here in the States.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was doing facilitation for SimTech Dealer Services, they were telling me, Becky, we don't have subprime customers here. But I'm like, stop it already. So I will tell you this. I was working with Todd Richardson. I hope, Todd, you listen to me. Well, you know Todd. That's right. You guys are buddies.
I was speaking with Todd today, and I'll be seeing them soon.
And I shared that picture with you, right? Of us at Lexus together. Yes. Now, I will say maybe at the Lexus store, we didn't have as much of it. But when I was 20 years, I don't even know, 15 years ago, I don't know, whatever it was a long time ago, he brought me into his Toyota store in Charles Glen, right?
Charles Glen, yes.
Toyota. And I'm like, Todd, you got to stop the madness. You got to get to this credit information sooner rather than later. Why are we submitting this, putting a deal together, doing a menu presentation, and then letting the bank tell us tomorrow whether or not we have a deal or not? It's the craziest thing I ever heard. And Todd, I will say, he is forward freaking thinking. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll let you do this with used cars. We won't do it with new cars, but we'll do it.
No, he's a good guy.
He is a super guy. I love Todd Richardson.
I respect Todd a lot, and we get along great. And in this business, Becky, one of the most valuable things that we have as people is meaningful relationships, not just relationships in general, but meaningful relationships. Hi, Richie. Richie's saying hello.
Let's go ahead. First of all, Randy, do you lease many used vehicles?
No, we don't. We don't typically lease many used vehicles because either the residual is too low and the advance amount is too low. So therefore, those vehicles you definitely want to finance. We would finance those vehicles instead.
Okay.
Great seeing you too, Richie.
Let's say, Richie, do you know Richie?
Yes, I've been on one of his shows with him, and he's a great guy.
He's a super guy. Yeah. In fact, I've got Richie coming on next week, and we are talking about, he's got this going on. He can track VINs. They're tracking VINs now to figure out what is the dealer's retention of all things, right? Are we retaining that customer? And if not, why not? And where are they? This is going to be a cool show too. Thank you for coming on and saying hi, Richie. Okay. And then Mike, good inquiry on how many CPOs leasing do you conduct?
Yeah, so I think I answered that one saying we don't do a lot of CPO leasing because of the advance and the residual amount. So it favors CPO vehicles in Canada typically favor financing the vehicle instead of leasing.
Okay. That's more of a finance kind of thing.
Yeah, unless it's subprime, which then you can dictate, how it's structured.
Becky, you have the best show out there. Yay! That's what I'm talking about. We have the best show going out here tonight. Thank you so much, Richie Bello. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the support too, Richie. I mean, you're a brilliant person when it comes to figuring out those leads. I've got to tell you, Jesus. But, this is fascinating. This is a very fascinating conversation. I'm so glad, we are doing this and talking about leasing, because everyone kind of sees this in a way that leasing is costing them profit. And really, what they're not doing is taking the method, they're not taking the moment to really determine that total profit when it's all said and done. By the time they spin one deal for 72 months versus, I don't know, doing that lease and bringing that customer back in,
Even
3 years down the road.
I think I have a power problem here, so I just got an indication on my computer.
Okay.
So I'm just.
I was wondering what you were doing there.
I know. I'm not trying to hide under the table.
Stuff happens when you're going live here, guys. Let's see what we've got going on here. Reid was one of my first guests. He used to, Reid was one of my first guests. He used to be amazing. He used to be an amazing guy. He's still an amazing guy. He's trying to figure out right now how to go ahead and plug up his computer and making sure his power doesn't go out. He's in, I believe, a hotel right now. So we're going to go ahead and, continue to make this a, what I could have done. I could have said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put you in the studio. But Everold's back and he's ready to go.
I was plugged into an outlet that had no power. Like, what the hell?
It happens to the best of us. Let me tell you something. I know when I got away from, doing the podcast for a while, I was trying to figure everything out all over again, right?
Well, that was like me today, pulling out a bag and a whole bunch of wires. I'm like, where the hell do these go again?
Hey, it's called life, right? I mean, stuff really does happen.
In case anybody wondered what I was doing under the table, I literally had to.
I was kind of wondering, okay, well, maybe there's an ad entrepreneur or something. I don't know. Maybe you want to pull up a sock.
Well, that's it, Becky. I was pulling up my socks.
I want to pull up some socks. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else. But you scared everybody away. No, I'm just kidding. So Richie's here, and he's going, Reid was one of my first guests. And he used to be an amazing guy. I don't know what that's all about. Richie, I
think he meant I was one of the first guests on his show. Yeah. But Richie's a great guy. But just to reiterate the point, Becky, and again, I do appreciate the interaction and the guests and the questions. In my view, based on my experience, and I've visited dealers in the US and obviously more so in Canada, if you want to build a sustainable business with less stress and less, every day it's shooting for the stars, trying to get the big profits. And, instead of this philosophy of get the most out of this client right now, because you may never see them again for 6, 7, 8 years or 5 years. It's much better philosophy if they are able to learn leasing, to provide better careers, better long-term profitability, like I said, in all departments, and better customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is what's going to bring them back. So I just finished a year, for example, with, almost a couple hundred deliveries, and I'm able to do that while I do this, Becky, because the same clients keep coming back over and over and over, right? And that's just an ability to now manage a portfolio, which is all I do, is for the most part, manage a lease portfolio, look after the clients well. They actually now become conditioned. Okay, and these are just terminologies that are fact. They become conditioned now to expecting a new car every 2 years. They'll be like, Everold, I haven't heard from you. What's going on? Right? So so that because they do, and people like that, but if you don't have anyone showing them how to make that happen, they think the only thing that they can do is finance a car, drive it till it's out of warranty, and trade it back in for another car. So I think it's just an opportunity for dealers across US and Canada to open more to the possibility of learning leasing. And part of the reason why humans don't do things well is because they don't understand it well. It's no
Well, I
different.
can. Here's what happens here. In Canada, and I'm not trying to say the guys in the States are stupid, because we're
Yeah.
not.
No, of course you're not.
But I don't know. I gotta say they just a different mindset in
It's a different
Canada
mindset.
versus what's going on here. And it's like they take a deal, let's go, let's rock. We're going to do a lease, and next thing you know, they make mistakes. And they always make mistakes because they're not used to working with leasing. And so what happens, like a subprime deal, no different. It sits on that CIT, and they're like forever trying to get it right. And it's like, whatever you do, don't do a lease, because we can't get it right. And so because they don't want these deals sitting on the CIT list because nobody can get it right. But here's what's happening now. They're going to have to learn this. They're going to have to wrap their heads around this leasing again, because it's here. It's now. I shared that report with you earlier on from LinkedIn from Steve and Greenfield, and he was talking about more EV sales, more hybrid sales, more leasing. And Randy mentioned everyone loves a new car with leasing. I do.
Yes.
I got to say, so we have got to do a better job when it comes to understanding a lease, being able to write a lease without it sitting on the CIT list. And not only that, understanding presentation, being able to communicate a lease. And I think we've got a big job there. If you provide an exceptional experience, you have a customer for life.
Absolutely. So being able to communicate is one thing, but communication without confusing the clients is another. Because if they're used to cash or finance, which most people are, the minute you say lease to them, they say, no, I don't want to lease. And then you'll say, well, why not? I mean, they said, well, the mileage, I'm going to have to start worrying about the mileage. I've heard, horror stories about when you bring the vehicle back, certain things like that. And I said, most generally speaking, salespeople are not able to counter that, to say, tell me, what do you mean, about bringing the vehicle back? So I'll give you a quick example. We have many clients in our marketplace, and this happens in Alberta too, out where Todd is. These clients are able to buy cash. They're able to buy a vehicle cash and not need finance or lease. And we're able to say, hang on a second, you're going to take $100,000 out or $50,000 and purchase a vehicle cash when you could actually leave that in an investment at whatever percentage and make some money, and lease this vehicle, at 5-6%, or these days rates are coming down to 3 and 4% on leasing. So what we've been able to teach people to do is to say to that cash buyer who has the money, to say, look, let me show you how structuring a lease, and these are the types of words you have to use. You have to use the word structure. You have to be able to articulate benefits. How structuring the lease actually works out better in your favor. And I would typically say to a cash buyer, look, I'm not suggesting you lease a car because I want you to lease a car. I'm suggesting you lease the car because it's actually it's more financially beneficial that you do so. And they'll say, what do you mean? Well, I'll say, well, here you're about to give us, this big check for this vehicle when the interest rate is 3%. Why would you do that? And then we're able to do the math and to say, look, if you lease this vehicle and make these amount of payments over 4 years and buy it out at this residual, which all the numbers are available, versus paying cash, here's what the total cost would be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And many people are not able to do that. So it becomes confusing. And if the salesperson is confused and the manager is confused, and then
I
definitely
will
the
tell you
customer is
right, and
confused.
I am sure that we have the guys and gals at maybe the Highline stores, Mercedes and that sort of stuff, where there's more leasing that's taking
Yes.
place. But some of these other guys in some of these other stores, boy, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
That is a whole new animal. I
It's a
mean,
whole
some of
different.
these guys have just recently, were hired during COVID,
Yeah.
let alone how to go ahead and present a lease and be able to address and overcome those objections when it comes to a lease. Couldn't agree with you more. Mike Moran, thank you for being on tonight. Appreciate you. Are younger people more inclined? I love this question. Are younger people more inclined to lease over a buy?
Yes, we're finding that it's definitely trending that way, because younger people, especially, definitely they'll be out of that car in 2 years if they can help it, because their lives are also evolving, right? So you're not just leasing a car for the purpose of leasing a vehicle. They're either coming out of university or in university, and as soon as they're out of that stage of life, another stage starts where it's potentially move in or a small family or a job. So you'll find that various circumstances are what dictates what people do. And that's another thing. When it comes to the lease renewals and the lease upgrades we do, we're able to do it a lot because of circumstances. If a client is financing a car that there's 3-4 years left on the loan, they're likely going to be upside down on that loan. So for them to transition, if their circumstance change, they have to move, they get a job, they have a family, the family is growing, downsizing, separating, whatever the circumstance is, leasing provides you more flexibility. The right structure of leasing with the right companies provide more flexibility to maneuver out of those vehicles and to transition to something that's more suitable at that time. So definitely younger buyers are more apt to lease vehicles.
So it's interesting, and I know we have some more comments here, so I'll go quick on this one. But a couple years back, again before COVID, subscription offerings were the thing. You had, companies, Scott Painter, he come out with a different model for subscription. And it didn't necessarily, Cadillac, GM came out with subscription models. So
Yes.
that way, right? Customers could flip into different types of models depending upon where they were in the year. And so they really didn't have to hold on to the car for as long, and maybe could be 12 months to 24 months, that sort of thing. And it was quite clever, but it really never took off. So, which now I wonder, especially in this climate, we have, not stupid, Becky, they hate change and they think that they have it all figured out. Guys, I gotta say, don't like to change. Car business is tough. Sometimes these guys stick it out, whatever it takes. I like it the way it is. I'm not changing anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't have to really change anything. So that kind of keeps them in. It doesn't necessarily keep them in check, is what I'm trying to say, I think. But I think if they understood the idea, because we have to make some changes here. We have got to do a better job when it comes to that ultimate customer experience. We got to be the differentiator. Dealers have to look at this stuff different. We have got to figure out how to get that inventory, how to get customers coming back, right? And how that plays out with another buyer right down the road, whether it be a subprime customer or somebody else. We've got to have that inventory coming back to make the difference. And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe you can show the dealer what is the total profit when it's all said and done between what's happening in, with those finance deals. And the one thing I will say about that doesn't necessarily mean because you get a customer out at 72 months that they're likely going to stay the 72 months without paying that off. And then there's the chargeback and everything else that you have to deal with. So one of the things, especially when a dealer tells me I'm running this or that or the other, and I'm like, I get it, I hear you, but what are those chargebacks?
Yeah.
What are you really keeping on the books?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and that's a big deal too, Becky, because what's the point if you're almost setting yourself up knowing that there's a probability of a chargeback based on what you're doing. Structuring leases is about creating unbelievable experiences. That's what I do with clients, and that's what I teach. When you're able to deliver what clients want, form those meaningful relationships. So not only are you getting the car back and that one client is upgrading to a new vehicle and provides you with better CPO, sales, parts and service business, etc. They're also referring you more clients. You're selling their kids' vehicles, their family members. So it's not just the leasing client, it's everybody else that keeps saying to them, how come you keep getting a new car? Or where do you get all these new cars from every 2 years? So they have to tell that story, and that story drives your referral business as well. So it's a huge philosophy. It's a huge circle of what I call a circle of opportunities that you can create for yourself and manage instead of just depending on the one-shot deals.
So Everold, if in fact a dealer that's watching wants to reach out to you, hopefully they will, because I'm telling you, they're going to need to.
Yeah.
What would be the best contact for them? What is your contact number, if you don't mind?
So I'm definitely on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn messages come in every day, every hour of the hour. And my email, I can definitely share that, which is my first name, Everold. Mm-hmm. Okay. Everold at thereidmethod.com. So it's my company. The Reid Method is international, is my company. So we can share my email in the chat. So my first name, Everold, Everold, at the Reid Method International, which is right there. Oh, there you are.
I don't know if I did that right or not, but we will see.
Okay. Are you putting it in the chat?
It's in there now.
Okay.
EveroldReidMethod.com.
No. Everold at. So my first name only.
Okay. Let's do this.
Yeah. So that's my direct email.
That's what I get. Yeah.
thereidmethod.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems easy to you.
I know.
I did it right, but
look at the. Well, you spelt the Reid. Yeah. You need an R there. Yeah. Almost there, Becky.
Told you. No.
But LinkedIn, Facebook Messenger, or email, and I'll respond right away. Like I typically will get the messages popped up on my email.
That's right. No. How did that happen? Oh boy. I think you better go ahead.
Okay.
The more I'm doing it, the worse it gets. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. But, I would need to sign in to do it, but I'm not able to join the chat. But that's okay. So Everold, everybody. So it's my first name, Everold. At the THE Reid REID method METHOD.com. Do you do one payment leases? This Randy guy is amazing. Everold at the Reid. Bingo.
Hey. Take his name down, guys, and call him, email him.
That's like the leasing courses that I'll teach, and on the third try, you say, "Yeah, why haven't I been doing that
I'm
before?"
going to bring you into my boot camps.
There you go.
One day with Everold, we're going to take it down and get
Sam,
this.
I know that name, Sam. Good to see you.
Oh, what am I doing here?
And Randy's asking a question. Do you do single pay leases? Yes. Yeah, we have done a few of those, and that's a good way that's an alternative to a cash buyer as well, who, if somebody wants to pay cash and you want to advise them to lease instead and get them on your leasing portfolio, you can offer a single pay lease. And, one would say, well, what is the advantage of a single pay lease? And if by making the payments up front or making one lump sum lease payment, right, and not making over the term of whatever 2, 3, 4 years, you just have the residual at the end, but it saves you a bit of interest. It saves you interest on the payments, right? You'll still have a bit of interest on the residual in the payment, but it saves you that interest that you would have otherwise paid on the principal portion. So single pay leases are an advantage. And here's the key thing about leasing versus financing or cash. Leasing provides clients with better protection, especially when it comes to insurance aspects. For example, most premium companies, and I know Toyota does too, and I think Honda as well, they have what's called gap insurance built into their leases. And I know we have that here in Canada. So there's standard gap insurance coverage. So if the vehicle was written off, so as far as protection, if the vehicle was written off or stolen and it had to be paid out, and the value of the vehicle was less than the remaining obligation, you were not responsible for that, right? That would be covered, and you could start fresh with a new vehicle. So, and you still had your cash, right? Your cash, instead of paying cash for a vehicle and then maybe having a lower settlement on your insurance, or maybe having a vehicle that's been in a major accident that was repaired and now has a huge Carfax on it that is worth less already now than what you owe on the vehicle. So that's a whole losing proposition there. Whereas if you lease a vehicle, at the end of the term, you can return that vehicle as long as it's in a guaranteed lease contract, and walk away from the fact that it's probably worth less.
Well, you know what? I think that everyone could learn the ABCs all back over again while leasing. And this certainly is an eye-opening experience for everyone.
Yes.
See what Sam did? That's so sweet of you, Sam. I like Sam.
Yes,
I don't know if you know
nice
Sam.
guy.
Sam is international too. He is a super great guy, and he's good people. Yes. And one of these days I'm going to get Sam on here too. But so to finish things up, if there's any kind of lasting comment you would like to make to, those that attended tonight, and those that will be attending, because, this goes on and on forever long in a day, what would that be?
Well, I think if you want to, great show tonight. Thanks, Chris. And I really appreciate your audience, Becky, and you, of course. And obviously, it's a reflection on you. So I do appreciate you very much for having me on.
I think the world of you, Everold. Yeah. I do. You're smart. You know what you're talking about. And I mean, I think that's what's so important. We have to look at something, that we've been looking at, I don't know, the last couple of years and saying, hey, this isn't the way, but we've been missing it all along.
Thanks, David.
Great. Hey, Dave Hammer. There you go. Well Susan. Done. Great information. Thanks, Dave.
So it sounds like I'm teaching a class. And honestly, the type of coach and speaker I am is more methodical. Because I actually developed my courses, one of my first course, which is Sales Mindset Principles. So just so people know what I do. So I have 2 courses. Obviously, the Lease Performance Blueprint is specifically automotive, but I also have Sales Mindset Principles. and sales mindset principles focuses on the individual. So I believe if you invest in people and people invest in themselves, collectively that helps to transform organizations to be better. So investing in lease training is a part of personal development and development for the dealership. If you can get your entire teams to develop a leasing culture, it won't happen overnight, but you'd be surprised how some people will cash on right away, and for some others it might take a little bit longer. And eventually you will see the huge benefits, long-term benefits and profitability of leasing vehicles. So supplying your own used car lot with vehicles, I look at, when I teach my team, I literally say, if you want find a used car that we don't have on our lot, guess where to find it right now in about 5 minutes? In your lease portfolio.
In your lease portfolio.
Okay.
I mean, I was like clockwork. They knew Becky was coming back, and they're like, Becky's cars are great.
Exactly.
She doesn't put that many miles on it.
Yeah. I mean, my son needed a car, and his friend needed a car, and I called a client that had one of the cars they wanted, and I said, it's time for a new car. But these people like that, right? They're happy to do it sometimes because they believe in you. You develop great relationships. So folks, if you want to develop relationships, meaningful relationships, because when you're helping clients this way and setting them up with better circumstances for themselves and better opportunities with better options, okay, people want options, right? When you stick them in a long-term finance, you're not giving them many options, right? People want flexibility and they want options. And the person that provides that type of service to them will be the one that retains and grows and builds that portfolio.
I think, frankly, I think everybody's waking up and they're seeing it. They're seeing the writing on the wall. That's where it's going. And that's, for those guys that we're going to have to adapt. We have got to figure this out, and we have got to have different options that are available to our customers and understand that, hey, if this is what it takes to keep our customer in our ecosystem, that's what we're going to do. A couple more comments here. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you, Susan, for being here tonight. And I'm going to miss you guys. I'm not going to NADA. And I want to thank you, Susan, for reaching out and wondering whether or not I was going or not. But this time around, I won't be there, unfortunately. But stop over at the International Hotel and grab a drink at the bar, because it's a freaking awesome bar. I was there 6 years ago. I love that hotel. But thank you again, Susan. Richie Bello, this is awesome information. Thank you, Richie. And I look forward to our talk next week. Mike Moran, another great show. Yay, Mike. Super cool.
Thank you, Mike.
Good man, smart man.
Yeah, and you can, if you're not connected with me already, which I think many of you are, please feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'd love to be able to connect with you guys and meet you and continue the conversation if I'm able to be of assistance.
And here we are. We have Everold's email address. So please feel free to email him, reach out on LinkedIn, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to touch base with you guys. And
absolutely.
That's good. This is great. So again, Everold, I want to thank you so much for coming on my live talk with Becky Chernek. And you had some amazing great comments, and I really appreciate that, and answers and solutions. Here you are. Look at that. I got it. A little bit bigger. There we go. Yeah. So making things happen here. And so Chris Kerr, thank you. I thank you so much, guys, for being here with us tonight. And
thank you, Malcolm.
Any other comments? I mean, other than thank you for being on tonight with me, Everold, and it's certainly great to see you again. And
it has been my pleasure, Becky.
And I'll see you guys.
And a long time coming.
Well, I know it has. It's been too long.
Yes,
and I'll see you guys next Thursday at 8 p.m. with Richie Bello. Thank you, guys.